Hi everyone, I'm Eric Enquist, Senior Managing Editor at The Real Deal, and I'm happy to be joined today by Tom Suozzi, who's running for governor of the state of New York. Tom, could you introduce yourself? You're a member of the House of Representatives, but you've had a long political career going back to the early 90s.
Well, I'm trained as a certified public accountant and attorney. I worked for Arthur Anderson and Company, and I worked for Sherman and Sterling, clerked for the Chief Judge of the Eastern District. I was the mayor of my hometown for 8 years. Turned the place around. I was the county executive of Nassau County for 8 years. It was rated the worst run county in America when I got there. We turned it around. A ranks for Moody's, Fitch, and Standard & Poor's when I left. Lowest crime rate in the United States of America when I left. And I've been in Congress for the past 5.5 years on the Ways and Means Committee. In between Congress and county executive, I worked for Lazard Frere and a law firm and some other stuff.
The audience that we're talking to right now is a real estate audience. These are folks who do give money to elected officials. And
I hope they'll give more to my campaign.
Well, but to your point, many of them are giving not because they're inspired by the candidate, but because they feel they need access to the candidate and they need to be in the game. Do you have a message for those folks?
My message is that Kathy Hochul will not win the general election. She can't win. And if you want to see a Democrat win the race, I'm the person you want. I'm not going to be an extremist. I'm going to get things done. I'm a proven executive. I'm a common sense Democrat who's focused on the issues you care about: crime, taxes, affordability, and corruption. Everything I've done in my life has prepared me for this particular job at this particular time.
Let's talk about some real estate issues. One of the most urgent ones is 421A, which is a major tax break. It is the predominant tax break for new apartment construction in New York City. It expires on June 15th. The expectation is that it will not be renewed, at least right away. The last time it expired, it was out for more than a year, and development came to a screeching halt during that time. Have you been following that issue, and what's your position on 421A? What should be done with that?
You know, to have more affordable housing, you need to build more housing. You need to have more supply to try and deal with the demand that exists. 421A is a great incentive to create more affordable housing. Some of the people that are against 421A say it's a big giveaway to the developers. One thing I've been talking to some of my developer friends about is maybe we should cap the rate of return for developers utilizing 421A at some number. I'm making this number up, it would be a negotiation, but say 10% rate of return. The developer would make money. Most developers don't make more than 10% on their money in a real estate deal, but the perception is that they're making a lot more on the deal. And it's very different in the outer boroughs than it is in Manhattan. But if we were to say, let's cap the rate of return at 10%, the developers would still be happy. The long-term patient capital would be happy. You get a lot of money from pension funds and insurance funds who want to invest in deals like that. And you would stop the argument saying that the developers are getting too much out of the deal.
That sounds good, but you don't really know what your return is going to be until you start renting units. So when you get your 421A abatement, it's years before you get your project approved, built, and start leasing units out, and you know what your revenue is going to be. So how practical is that idea?
I think it's a very practical idea because it's a way for us to support the idea of tax credits to encourage affordable housing, but address the concern of some people that are saying this is too much of a giveaway to developers, because nobody's going to begrudge a modest return on a development. And I think it's a good compromise. Now, there's a lot of details. It'd be a lot of big battle. And I think we should be looking at some of the capital gains issues as ways, people always hold on to their properties forever until they die and they get the stepped up basis and they can give it to their kids. Maybe there's a way for us to address that at the federal and state level to encourage some of these apartments to convert to ownership by dealing with some of the tax consequences.
The old 421A actually had an ownership component that was largely written out. You are mostly a suburban Democrat for most of your career. I think you have represented Queens as well, but really a suburban part of Queens. I'm wondering what role you think the suburbs have to play in addressing New York's housing affordability problem.
Well, I think there's very big opportunities with transit-oriented development. I talked about it when I was county executive. I started this 25 years ago talking about cool downtowns, I called it. I guess it's not cool to say cool anymore. But the idea of encouraging apartments in downtowns, around train stations, offices, retail, restaurants. I talked about that when people were against that idea. And we've seen that change in the conversation out on Long Island, for example, over the years with more development in the downtown areas. Again, I talked about how the population of New York State relative to the rest of the country has diminished so much since 1962 when I was born. I use that as an example. From 45 members of Congress down to 27, now going down to 26. It'll continue to go down. We'll continue to lose influence in the country, even though we're the biggest net donor to the federal government.
Now, when Kathy Hochul, the governor, proposed that every single family lot should be allowed to add a second unit, you came out against that.
I'm 100% opposed to that idea because it should be local control, not Hochul control. And this was not just people from Nassau and Suffolk, but it was people from Westchester, it was people from Queens, it was people from Staten Island. I'm not against accessory dwelling units. I'm not against the idea of building accessory dwelling units. I'm against the state government trying to do a one-size-fits-all, mandating it for the local level.
But wouldn't you agree that if you allow localities the choice to say no, that they are going to say no? Because they always have.
In many instances, they will, but I've been living this for the past 30 years of my life, and I've seen a change based upon things that I've done and other people have done, like County Executive Steve Ballone and other local mayors, where we've built cool downtowns. I laid out an idea called New Suburbia when I was County Executive in Nassau County, and I said that we need to figure out how to take our aging suburbs and make them more attractive for young people. The only way to do that is to build more housing to go up in our downtowns around our train stations. Look at the Mineola train station these days, how dramatically different it was than just 10 years ago, with thousands of apartments around the train station. Go to downtown Farmingdale. Look what they did in Wyandanch. Look what we did in Glen Cove, not close enough to the train station for my liking, but literally 1,000 new units, both rental and ownership.
I don't know how much attention you paid to the rent stabilization law when it passed in 2019, because it was mostly affected New York City. There are some rent stabilized units in the
I think it's not working. I think I've heard reports there are 15 to 20,000 vacant apartments in New York City that are sitting there because the developers, the owners, cannot recapture the investment they make to do the capital improvements, because you get 101. What's the right way to say that?
1/62 of your
of your investment.
Yeah, but long story short, you can basically spend $15,000 every 15 years to renovate an
Which is
apartment,
absurd.
which doesn't get you much.
Right. So I think that there's got to be a balance whereby you can still have affordable housing, maybe not at the low level that was rent stabilized before, but affordable housing in the case of these vacant apartments, that you can still keep them affordable, but make it that the owner can recapture more of their investment.
So as governor, you would push for a change to the rent stabilization law to try to bring those 20,000 vacant units back online?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And do you think you could get that done? Because the tenant lobby is very against that.
So in politics, you've got to lead, you've got to give a vision, you've got to fight for it, you got to get the public on your side, you got to try and negotiate with your colleagues in government, and if that doesn't work, you got to fight them.
Do you have a position yet on good cause eviction?
I'm against it.
Why?
Because I believe we have some of the best tenant protections in the United States of America here in New York State right now. And I'm concerned, I am concerned when I hear the stories about people's rents going up 50%, 100% or more in a short period of time. And we have to figure out what we can do to address that, utilizing market principles and working together with the development community. But I'm concerned that this good cause eviction will result in more problems because we have this one-sided view on these issues. There's got to be a balance between tenants and landlords.
Is that a law that you would tweak? Because right now it says, if you raise your rent more than 3% or the rate of inflation, whichever is higher, then the tenant basically doesn't have to pay rent and has a rebuttable defense in court against eviction. So landlords are saying it's basically universal rent control. Is that the way you see it?
No, I don't like it.
The governor has proposed that as of a certain year, you would not be able to build a fossil fuel heated and cooled building anymore in New York State. It would have to be basically an electric powered building.
So I was the New York State Environmentalist of the Year by the New York League of Conservation Voters. I got awards from Al Gore for cleaning up polluted sites when I was the mayor of Glen Cove. I'm on the Green New Deal. I support climate change initiatives at the federal level. The problem is we're trying to do everything in New York State on our own, and we're seeing our utility prices go up through the roofs. We're making the cost of development so it's going through the roof. We're making it so that we're unattractive as a place to locate. So we have to try and balance our zeal to protect the environment with our zeal to keep people here in New York State. The way to address our climate footprint in New York State is not to have more people leaving here and going down to Florida or North Carolina or South Carolina or Texas or Arizona and have them go pollute there. So we've got to find some balance. I don't like the idea of this quick transition. The big ideas we have, the visions we have to address the big problems we face, we need to do more of it at the federal level and less at the state level, because the state is becoming unaffordable and unattractive.
But you're running for governor. Like, you're not running for governor to do less at the state level, are you?
I'm running for
And
governor.
You know how dysfunctional the federal
I'm running
government is.
for governor to reduce taxes in New York State. I'm running for governor to make it more affordable to live in New York State. I'm running for governor to reduce crime in New York State. I'm running for governor to do a lot of things. But the things I'm looking to do are not in line with the far right or the far left. It's in line with what the people want.
One more thing, Governor Hochul put into her budget a bunch of provisions that the real estate industry really wanted. She ended up dropping all of them because she could not get the legislature to agree. One of them, for example, was to allow New York City to build higher residential buildings. Right now, there's a cap on how much density you can have in your residence. She proposed to raise that, but the legislature balked, and so she dropped that from the budget. I'm wondering if you have a position on that. That's the floor area ratio cap, or any of the other provisions that she pulled out of her her budget.
You know, I'm willing to negotiate those type of things and figure out what's best, but I'm in favor of local control as opposed to the state dictating what happens at the local level. I don't like that idea whatsoever as a former mayor and as a former county executive.
Tom Suozzi, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you.
Thank you.